Hey class, welcome back to EDU 3233. We are jumping into our second lecture of this kind of first week of material. Last video, you looked at sort of what is development, kind of thinking about change and all the different ways that it takes place across the lifespan. And for this video, we're going to look at our first theory of development, or first theorist, and that's going to be Jean Piaget. Jean Piaget, if you've taken an introductory psychology course, or if you took developmental psychology, perhaps maybe in the past, this is a name that probably popped up quite a bit, and hopefully you're familiar, or maybe that rings a bell. If not, not a big deal. Piaget is considered kind of one of the founders, or one of the prominent names that we think about in developmental psychology. He was an epistemologist. He wasn't really a psychologist. He was more someone who was interested in the development of knowledge and how that takes place. But a lot of his ideas about how we learn and develop to think, how thinking develops, that cognitive development is so critical. The theories, are still into discussion even today. So some things about Piaget, just kind of unpacking Piaget just a little bit. Children are naturally just sort of not built. They are sort of geared towards learning, and they're very energetic, very curious about learning. If anybody's been around really young kids, especially maybe when they're first going to school for the first time, they're really excited about all the things they get to learn. And even before, they go to school, you can kind of see that excitement building and interest in learning. It's sort of kids are just naturally curious. The way that development is taking place, especially when we talk about cognitive development between the ears, it's when children are interacting with their physical environment and other people. So very much learning is a very active social sort of phenomena, according to Piaget. And then he also talks about this process of equilibration that kind of spurs us to more advanced thinking, kind of motivates us to think about the world in different ways. And so, kind of unpacking equilibration a little bit, what happens is we develop schemas for how we understand the world. And through those schemas, we can make accommodations, or we can assimilate new information, like things that fit into our existing worldview. We can fit it into our current structure. If not, then if it doesn't quite fit into our current view of the world, or how we see a particular phenomena, then we might have to make accommodations or changes to that viewpoint. And it's through this processes of assimilation and accommodation, according to Piaget, that kind of motivates more advanced levels of thinking as we get older. Children think in qualitatively different ways at each different stage of development. So that's one of the key features also of Piaget's theory, is that cognitive development occurs in stages, in four stages. We're really only going to look at, I don't know if we'll look at all of them, but the first stage we're only looking at, I think, yeah, three of these. We're not looking at the very first stage, which is sensory motor. Sensory motor is when children are literally learning how to think and understand the world by using their sensory organs: eyes, ears, touch, taste, and smell, and also their motor skills, motor reflexes. So moving the hands, the arms, the legs, moving their head around, things like that. But as far as when we think about school, when we get to kids who are school age, who are going to school and learning, according to Piaget, at this point, they're probably in that pre-operational stage, which is stage two, and it roughly corresponds to the ages of 2 to 7. Now, children at this stage, in terms of how they express their thinking, is in terms of the use of language. They are much more capable. The play they engage in is more pretend play, so you can kind of see them acting out, like playing house or playing race cars or whatever. I work at the zoo, so we get a lot of kids who like to play zookeeper, for example, but they get to pretend they put themselves in another world. They take a box and turn it into a spaceship, or, a race car or whatever. They're starting to develop logical thinking, but it's really rudimentary at this point. They're not very good at abstract thinking. If you ask a kid, tell me about what is peace and democracy or love or something, they might just kind of stare at you and wonder what the heck you're asking about. They also tend to be kind of egocentric at this phase. This doesn't mean that 2 to 7-year-olds are jerks and only thinking about themselves. It just means they really only have the capacity to think from their perspective. It's not until they get older and are kind of motivated to start thinking about other people's perspectives that we might actually see some changes there. Around the concrete operation stages, now we're talking about kind of later elementary. Kids are they're more capable of logic, or they're more flexible in their thinking, and they're more logical. They can even start to do sort of hypothetical hypotheses deductive thinking as well. They're more, or excuse me, they're less egocentric than before because they're spending more time with peers. They're more social. Their social interactions are becoming more and more important. And still, kind of the thing here is the limitation here is still not quite capable of abstract thought. That's really not until we get into this formal operation stage, which is the last stage according to Piaget. It's building on all the previous stages, but now you have children who are more capable of talking about things that are more abstract and not just concrete here and now. So, if you ask a 5-year-old what is love, a concept that's very abstract, they might say, "Oh, love is when my mom hugs me before I go to school in the morning," or "Mom is, when mom makes me a snack after school when I get home." Versus if you ask a teenager what love is, they might come up with a simile or a metaphor and say, "Love is, like the pouring rain," or I don't know. I'm just coming up with something off the top of my head, but they're gonna be able to deal with that idea maybe in more abstract terms. So, anyways, that's kind of where we're going with Piaget. Stage-like development, interaction, really important. Equilibration is kind of what spurs us to thinking more deeply. So we're going to stop here. Pretty short presentation, and we'll jump back into some more theories on the next video. Take care.